Okay, time now to talk about a new historical spy drama. Well, newish. 6 Minutes to Midnight. It's available on digital download next Friday and on DVD from the 26th of July. It's co written by and stars Eddie Izzard, and we'll be hearing from her after this clip.
Is this your first visit to Bexhill?
Yes, it is.
There's been an alliance between England and Germany here for many years.
What sort of Englishman would accept a post teaching Herr Hitler's League of German Girls?
Der Führer würde sagen, dass nicht ein Mann ist.
Der Führer würde was sagen?
Mein Vater ist Deutsch.
I do not like surprises.
And that is a clip from 6 Minutes to Midnight. I'm delighted to say Eddie Izzard joins us. Eddie, hello, good afternoon.
How are you, Simon?
Well, I'm doing fine. How have you found? I mean, I imagine, well, I know that you're always incredibly busy because we hear about the virtual marathons and the gigs and so on. Have you found this unusual and unpleasant 16 months to be creative, or have you found it challenging?
Not hugely creative. It would have been great. You know, I think a lot of people thought, hey, let's write a whole bunch of things. But for some people, I think that worked well. And yeah, it didn't quite, certain things I didn't quite get to do. But yeah, it's just a tough time for so many people. But I think I had it easier than most people. And the filming continued. This is the bizarre thing. Filming is quite a complex thing. So filming of dramas, I suppose of sitcoms as well, but the drama filming that I was doing in Britain and in Canada was carrying on with, you know, everyone getting tested up with zoo, everyone's wearing masks all the time. But in the end, I was able to do things and run 32 marathons, which was just something you do in a January.
It was just another one of those extraordinary Eddies. I think, in fact, there's a moment in the film where you're, I don't know, it's giving anything away, you're running away from the police. And and I just think, don't they realize that's Eddie Izzard that they're chasing? So introduce us to why is it 6 Minutes to Midnight? Where are we? What's happening? And who is Mr. Miller?
Summer of 1939, Thomas Miller is a school teacher who comes in to take over the school in the town of Bexhill-on-Sea. It's on the south coast of England, near Hastings, near Brighton. So it's the week before World War II begins. And this is a school, it is a true school that did exist. This is what the story starts. It's called the Augusta Victoria College for Girls. And there were young girls from Nazi Germany who were very much linked to the Nazi high command. And they were there as doing a finishing school, as kind of ambassadors, because Hitler wanted to link up with England. He had this idea of the English particularly, I suppose, as opposed to the United Kingdom people, the English people being part of the Aryan thing that he was constantly going on about and just making up whatever rules he wanted to. So anyway, they were there, and this is true. Those girls were there from 32 to 39, and they were listening to Hitler's speeches. They were going around wearing their swastikas on their clothing. They had it on their blazer bag. So they had these very smart school blazers with a British flag and a Nazi flag on it. That's where the whole story started. I was at the museum in Bexhill and they showed me this badge, and I thought, well, there's a story there, and that turns into 6 Minutes to Midnight. Good lad that Thomas Miller is a school teacher who goes in, but he turns out not to be a school teacher. It's the character I play, and as the story unfolds, he is accused of committing a murder, and the police and everyone starts chasing after him, but he's not quite who he seems.
So Thomas Miller is an interesting person. Just tell us what you can, because there's a moment where, so you have Dame Judy here, who's running the Augusta Victoria School for Girls, and she says when you go for the interviews, it says this is early on in the movie. This is a paraphrase, but it's roughly right. What kind of an Englishman wants to be at Herr Hitler's League of German Girls? And so what kind of an Englishman is he?
Well, he is halb Deutsch. He is, mein Vater ist Deutsch, he says. My father is German. And so his mother is English from an aristocratic background. His father is German, an industrialist. And he loves Germany, he loves Britain. And he is being torn apart by this organization that is saying that the Germans are the overlords and should take over the world and murder everyone. And he's just not part of that, as and a distinct number of Germans were, which gets lost in the story of Germany because you just think all the Germans joined in, but they didn't. So Thomas Miller's character, he turns out to be, he's working behind the scenes, and Judi Dench playing Frau Rochel, and there was a Frau, well, she's playing Miss Rochel. A real Frau Rochel was the woman who was in charge of that school, and they were going to open a boys' school as well. And we know the local kids started throwing apples at them, and the girls were going around saying, we filmed a scene of this, which didn't make it into the film, but saying, you know, the war's going to come and we're going to win the war. So it was really getting tough. It was really getting separate in there, and some people, obviously a lot of young kids, were beguiled by Hitler's message.
You've explained a bit about where the story came from, and you are one of the screenwriters on this film, 6 Minutes to Midnight. Are you a good collaborator in writing stories, Eddie?
This is the first film that I've collaborated on. I feel there's a number of I'm good at story ideas and twists and turns. The writing of stories is a much more difficult thing. I need to collaborate with other people. Am I a good person to collaborate with? I'm not sure if I can measure that yet, because this is one film and I need to do more. I need to pull these other stories out of me, but I do need to collaborate with someone else, because if you know about how I write my stand-up, which is obviously a very different thing, or a somewhat different thing to writing narrative drama, my screenwriter or my collaborator is the audience, because I don't actually write it. I write little ideas down, and then I go on stage and I improvise, and the audience reaction tells me if I'm on the right lines or not. Normally, if you're working with another writer, or in this case, another two writers, they could say, yes, oh, that idea grabs, or that idea doesn't grab. And then you can, you know, if two or three of you are into the idea, that would drive it forwards. Yeah, so I just love them. You may know this, you may not know. I broke into Pinewood Studios when I was 15, just like Spielberg broke into Universal when he was 17, and I was trying to get into him. His career started very quickly after that, and mine started about 15 years after that. So I had a delay where I had to do the fine wine development of whatever I had to develop in my life to have my weird career.
Did you finish this project thinking, I want to do more, and I want to do more like this, and maybe I can write on my own? Or did you just think, you know, collaboration is the way forward? I just think the idea of you writing stories and then acting them out sounds very exciting.
Yeah, I did finish this. I mean, this was something I've been trying to do for some time, if you think, you know, but I just knew there's things I had to develop. I had difficulty with the sense of structure and narrative and story arcs. That just was a difficult thing to put into my head. But I know there's some weird stories that I've got, or some curious stories that I'd like to pull out, which I think are interesting and different. But yes. So at the end of this, when I finished this film, and even before that, I knew that this is something I wanted to do and develop. But finding that place is tricky. But yeah, you know me, I'm kind of relentless, so I'll just keep pushing on until the world gives in.
Yeah. And are you as relentless as ever?
Yeah. One life, live it well. That's my thing. You know, I suppose I'm never going to tail off. You know, Picasso, Cubism started very late in his life, didn't he? Most people, you think of bands and it's, you know, the early years, and then it all sort of tails off. And I'm not sure if that is true, that whether creativity tails off for songwriters who are in bands, or whether it's just the fact that they've taken off at a place where it's all very buzzy and haircuts and fashion driven and in their 20s, and then later on people are not looking at that, and so sales are different. But I like the idea that you constantly should be on the edge of your creativity, constantly trying to find new and different things, and you will do things that don't work and go wrong. But I mean, I was doing like stand-up. I'm now doing gigs in French and German and improvising in those languages, which is I know is very seat of the pants, because it scared the everything out of me. I'm not sure if I can swear on radio, but it just was very scary to stand on stage in Paris and just go, hey, bonsoir, nous allons improviser aujourd'hui, and just go off and see where I could get to in French.
A well-known TV executive, Jimmy Melville at Hat Trick Productions, said to me once that he said, I think you'll find some of your 50s are your most creative period. And anyway, and he turned out to be right, I think. And it sounds, I mean, apart from when you're breaking into Pinewood at 15, it does sound as though, I mean, you are an incredibly creative person anyway, and always have been, but it does feel as though there's so much stuff happening in your life that you're constantly coming up with new things to do, new projects. Like you said, you know, one life, do the best you can with it.
Yes, I think that is the way to go. I do remember saying to my dad years ago, I think I've worked it out. You got to get a good job, a cushy job, I think I said, and then you just cruise on in until you to the end of your life. Some idea that you get to some sort of plum job and then sit on that until you die. This was my early analysis, which I then debunked and realized, no, the change is the thing, and moving forward and constantly learning and developing, and also to keep away dementia, just for anyone out there, you know, constantly be trying new things, constantly learn new language, Sudoku, crosswords, whatever it is, keep that mind active, because that helps push away dementia, which no one wants to get. But I think creativity, if you're doing creativity, you make things happen. It is the most beautiful thing to do, because nothing was there and then something was there and people say, oh, I want to see this something. And so I love film. I love films before anything. You know, when I was 12, I mean, drama was what I wanted to do when I was 7, and then I realized, oh, films, people do this stuff. And then I realized there was a place called Pinewood Studios and other studios where they filmed it in. So that was always my first love, and comedy was my second. It was something I loved along the way. I didn't realize, oh, you could specialize in that, and I went into that for weird various reasons. I just backed out of drama when I was at school. I got no roles at school. I was given no good roles, because if you're not tall, if you're not the tall kid at school, especially boys, if you're not the tall boy, you won't get the main roles unless you're some sort of savant genius at what you're doing. You won't get them.
And just one other question, and I realize this is a whole other subject matter to get into, but it pertains to the acting, and that is, if you still want to stand for election, if you still want to be an MP or have some kind of political office. I remember seeing you a few years ago and you said, I want to be mayor of London. You're absolutely, definitely serious about this.
Yeah, I am.
That means that you can't act. That means you can't be an actor anymore. So
once that starts, yes, but maybe not. Yes, you can. I think, I don't know if you know, I'm doing an adaptation of Charles Dickens' Great Expectations.
Yes.
As a social performance, and people seem to be really liking this, even though I haven't actually officially. I'm still doing previews, but just because COVID's sort of blocked the launching of things. But people like this. I'm one person on stage playing 21 characters, using the technique that comes from stand-up and Richard Pryor, in fact, of multiple, up to 2 or 3, sometimes 4 characters talking to each other. Usually 3 is about the most on stage, and it's just me playing it. And I realized that in politics, I could do stand-up and I could do something like Great Expectations if I was raising money for charity. I could, and I wouldn't be doing that in spite of running constituency and being an MP. I would do that. It would be something that if you go to a place and you're visiting a place, you could help raise some money and help somewhere in a town or city that you go to, or a part of a city. And that might be a nice positive thing to bring somewhere, as opposed to just turning up and making a political speech. So in that way, one could at least keep one's feet in the water, under the desk, I don't know, near the desk, in that way. But yes, one will not be going off and doing films and setting things up. But yeah, raising money for charity, I don't see why that shouldn't be a positive thing to do.
But you still fancy the just looking at the last by-election, it was quite a nasty affair at times. You still fancy that?
Yeah, well, otherwise you leave it to the simplistic politicians. You know, the extreme right wing have these, they call them the populists, and of course they usually have a minority vote, so that by definition the unpopulists. So the simplistic politicians who use lying as a tool of politics, which is just a hellish state where we're going. It was like we're going back to the 1930s. Whereas I want to encourage everyone to head forwards to the 2030s. So, and I think moderate people don't go into politics because they think it's too brutal an affair. So I encourage moderate people. I'm a radical and a moderate, so I do radical things with a moderate message. And I encourage people to get into politics, because otherwise you just leave it to extremists and people whose wild egotists, and that's just not the good place for the country to go, or any country to go.
Eddie, always fascinating to speak to you. Thank you very much. 6 Minutes to Midnight is available on digital download next Friday. It's available on DVD from the 26th. Eddie, appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sam.